Major priorities you felt like going into this cycle, and how you felt like you addressed those?
Yeah, the only thing, if we were going to sit here today and have any, one thing that, if we had our druthers, which I don't know what a druther is, but one more big guy, offensively or defensively. We had a few guys that we had targeted that for whatever reason either didn't work out from our end or didn't work out from their end, and then we had a bunch of other guys that we just didn't end up recruiting, and we'll kind of pocket that and go forward. But other than that, I thought, our defensive line, I think we addressed that really well. The other guy that's going to make a huge impact is TJ Daniel, moving him from offense to defense. He had an outstanding fall and redshirt year. And then the other big need, obviously, was defensive back, which I think we addressed that really well. Yeah, there's a few changes. I think just more of logistically and from an overall plan of things, we changed slightly. Our guys were in over 1,000 high schools in 31 states over the last year. And that's a ton of miles. And we tried to line that up and orchestrate that in as most efficient and kind of a manner as possible, because you're trying to target, you'd like to target candidate A for every position, but candidate A might be in Florida, and then there might be somebody else in Kansas, there might be somebody else in Arizona, and just try orchestrating all of that as best as possible. I thought our guys did really well. Jim Fisher, who kind of orchestrates our in-house logistics recruiting wise, did a tremendous job, and we'll find out here in a couple of years. The only thing, and again, it's not something that we're losing sleep over, is just, like I said, one more big guy, and on either side of the ball would be the only thing that we if we had the perfect guy that would have filled that role, we would have taken him and had a couple chances to do that. But the thing that you don't want to do at the end is stretch for a guy that doesn't fit for whatever reason. And there's a couple things on the horizon that may or may not happen, and we'll go from there. But I think all in all, we actually got one more guy than I think we all thought we were going to get about a week ago, and all things considered, I think that there's basically one thing that we've added is we have basically an 8-step process, 8 criteria that have nothing to do with football. And that's where we try to, as best as possible, the thing that we always talk about is manage the knowns. Manage as many knowns as because the 5-star all-world player is at best in college football a little worse than a coin flip that guy's really going to be a player. That's just the proven science of it. And so the more of that coin flip you can lean to your direction up front of all the things that you can try to find out that we're allowed to find out, we try to manage those as best as possible without exception. And I mean, there's a bunch. Michael Clay was the first guy that popped in my mind, who was an undersized guy that a lot of people didn't recruit. Kenyon Barner. There's a bunch of guys. Hronis Gross, who wasn't very heavily recruited. Lots. Sorry.
Any feedback on this building that we're in right now from the recruits and how it maybe impacted their recruitment with you?
It's been huge, and I think, as I said at the beginning, I think it's more of just the overall commitment. The commitment to the overall student athlete experience. And what we tell our guys when we recruit them is we are going to work unconventionally, very unconventionally, and we're going to support you unconventionally. We have a lot of great stuff around here, a lot of shiny, great, neat things, but the people that those guys are around on a daily basis is what matters the most. And distance is still the biggest factor that we have to overcome. And it's still, if you ask around the country, that's the number one factor of why a guy chooses a place. Distance number one and winning number two. But we have to. We have to overcome some of that, and we will, and we do, and I think that unconventional support and the commitment to those guys, the commitment of being part of a great university in a great place to live, results in getting guys from Florida and Louisiana and wherever else that. These were highly recruited guys, but more importantly, they're our guys. They're our kind of guys that. It takes that much more to fly over that many more schools, and that's a for us, it's a great deal. Huge. It certainly gets you in the door. I think like we've talked about in the past, it was the uniforms and the helmets and the flash and the deal, and then that might start the conversation. But now it's the degree and the sports marketing program and the commitment to the student athlete that matters a lot. And oh, by the way, we've won a ton of games, and more than any other Pac-10, Pac-12 program in the last 25 years. And so those things hand in hand, again, help us to overcome some of the perceived obstacles. Well, I think certainly the junior college guys, when you're recruiting junior college guys, there's obviously a need at that position. And I think all those guys are physically, mentally, and psychologically close. But we'll find out. And then as for the rest of them, we'll never limit a guy or preordain a guy that they're gonna be the man. And there's a ton of great football players on that list, a ton of competitive guys, and we'll find out. I don't think we sat here last year and said I guarantee Johnny Munt's going to make a huge difference. Or this guy or this guy or this guy. And by the same token, we probably have lost a few bets in the last few years on this guy's going to redshirt and go into a great career. So we'll find out. That'll all play out.
You talked about distance. How do you balance recruiting on a national level, but also staying to your local states, the areas in your region?
That's the $1 million question. Because you're in on some guys maybe that you've never been in on before, recruiting against some people that traditionally, we would lose to, but that's the great question, because you're trying to take a guy that's maybe 2 clicks better than the next guy, but this next guy's in Northern California or something, or whatever it is. But we just that's where we really try to get to know these guys and find the guy that is willing to go, that's willing to fly across the country. It's a small country, really, when you think about it. And every game's on TV. All those things that go into making this a smaller world. There's some guys that are willing to do that, and some guys, there's already 2015 guys that guys are in Florida that are, absolutely willing to come this far, and there's guys in California and some other state that aren't. That's just it's kind of just getting to know them as much as possible. I don't know. I know that the guys that we got, we love, and we tried to manage the knowns on those guys as much as possible. And we've had 5-star guys that weren't any good. We've had 5-star guys that were spectacular. We've had no-star guys that were All-Americans. We've had no-star guys that, weren't very good. And so it's a great day for a lot of people to that have created an incredible niche business in this deal, and that's great. And then by the same token, let's go to spring ball and let's go to fall camp and see who shows up and see how it plays out. Without exception, positive. Of guys that have known. You travel around Southern California or California with DP or the West, and people know who that guy is, and they know his pedigree, they know his character, they know his discipline, and the same of the guys that have been around. Chins was in about 50-something schools in a few days, and already killing it, for the next year. So, and Coach Neal, the same thing. We've had, that's the other thing of I think that the proudest thing in all this for me, and I'm not a very proud guy outwardly, but to have, Marcus Mariota, EFO, and then about 8 coaches that could be in a lot of other places stay here, that means a ton for this place. And it can do nothing but help in recruiting.
Coach, on paper it would appear that the offensive linemen you signed are maybe 20 to 30 pounds heavier than most of the high school offensive linemen you signed in the past few years. Was that a conscious effort on your part to get bigger, or was that just a coincidence, just worked out that way, or what?
I think more of the latter.
Okay.
We want to be versatile up front. I think is the biggest key. We want 5 guys that can play 5 different positions, ideally. Because then you can put in, you can be interchangeable. You can get your best guy as the first substitute into the game, rather than your backup left tackle. He might be your 10th best offensive lineman if you have a backup right tackle, of down the line. But just trying to be more versatile. There were a couple of the guys that we were recruiting that were more in the 275-ish. Another guy was about 285-ish range, that you project to be able to develop. So I think it's just more of a law of averages thing happened.
Mark, Royce seems to be a bigger back than who you guys have had in the program in past years, except maybe for Trey Carson, who's only here for a year. Did you want to go out and get a bigger back? And how do you see having a bigger guy in the system changing things at all?
Yeah, I mean, we want to get, I guess we'd like to talk about the biggest, fastest, great version of, the ideal person, the ideal character and attitude that those guys bring to the table, and he's moving that direction. He's a big physical dude, runs heavy, but then still has the skill set to run out of the backfield and catch the football, to be a great returner, and protect and do some of the things that our guys do. But having a little bit more of a thumper absolutely can help you in goal line situations, short yardage situations, and just being a heavy changeup.
Mark, did you experience any deja vu recruiting Morgan, just with how it developed, and how much will being around Marcus for a year help his development?
Yes, and a ton. It was funny when I first went to watch him, and no disrespect to anybody, I didn't know what either one of these guys looked like, just their facially. And so I went and watched these guys practice, and I assumed that he was the guy who was the elder statesman of the guys, and the guys that was being recruited at that time. And then it just kind of went from there. He came to camp and sat behind a great player in Jared Goff, who's obviously had a great first year at Cal from a statistical standpoint. He's a very conscientious guy, very smart guy, very competitive guy, and he's really excited to come in and work with and for Marcus, and be around a guy like that. It's kind of evolved. We started doing this my first year here, Chip's first year here, and it's just changed. There's a couple things added, a couple things that we've changed, but just we're basically just trying to quality control as much as we can up front, and keep tweaking that process. It's an imperfect business, but we're trying to push toward the perfect side.
Mark, since you guys have been recruiting, we haven't been able to talk to you about Don Pelham, about hiring Don Pelham. I know it happened a few weeks ago, but why Don? Why was the decision made to hire Don?
He's a great person and a great coach. In the most simplistic of forms, I think he's a guy that has been around, so to speak, of different systems, different management styles, and every time that he's been empowered, he's been excellent. When he's been in front of the team, he's been excellent. When he's been in front of the unit, he's been excellent. And one thing that always caught my eyes, his office was kind of L-shaped across the corner from mine over in the other building, and every single day his guys were there early for the special teams meeting, before the special teams meeting for their position meeting. All their stuff was lined up, backpacks all lined up, papers out, notebook in, meeting. They'd all come out, put them back in there, run into the special teams meeting, come out, go back in, meet, come back out, put their backpack on, run down and go outside. And it was like clockwork. And I go, well, how come everybody doesn't do that? And he goes, I'm not in charge of everybody. And that kind of stuff multiplied out, the continuity piece is a bonus. Like I said at the time of his hiring, I think he's the best guy for the job, and he's the right guy for the job. And the neat part about it is we have 4 great coaches in that room that will all work with and for each other and for that unit and for this team, probably most importantly. And really excited about Chins as well.